in the chat where, oh yes, we will record that. If you want to put your details in the chat of where you're based, we'd be super pleased to say a big hello to wherever you are in the world and welcome you to this very special webinar. And we also want to acknowledge the ancient wisdom, the healers, the seekers, the guides, the angels, all of the entities and ancestors that have brought us to this place today and whose shoulders we stand on. We acknowledge the wisdom that comes before us at Mind Medicine Australia, and we are thrilled to have so many of our therapists and other wonderful community on this call with Dov Baron. I'm going to start off by showing you just a few quick slides on Mind Medicine Australia, and hands up if you've been with our webinars before, and if you haven't, hands up if you haven't been on our webinars before. Some newbies as well. So this webinar is called Cracking Your Emotional Source Code, Discovering Meaning to Fulfill Your Life's Soul's Purpose. Soul's Purpose. Next slide. Thank you, Alan. So our focus is on the development of evidence-based psychedelic-assisted therapies within regulated healthcare systems. Our presentations are intended for educational purposes only. They don't constitute medical advice, and they are recorded and will be shared in our YouTube channel. We know that many people registered for this webinar who are not here today because of the time of day, because we have to accommodate our good friend in Canada. Next slide, please. So the mental health epidemic in Australia. This is why we're all here, because of these terrible statistics, and this is why we set up Mind Medicine Australia. So currently 1 in 4 Australians have a mental illness. 1 in 30 children as young as 4 are being prescribed with psychiatric medications. 1 in 5 Australians are on mental health related prescriptions. 1 in 4 people aged over 55 are on psychiatric medication. So we're dumbing down our older community. And there's been over 34 million scripts for antidepressants dispensed in 2023 alone, which is the last time they provided statistics on this. So this is a terrible cost to all of us, to the community, to society. Human suffering is enormous, and despite everyone's best efforts, and the best efforts of many of the clinicians in our community, many of you who will be on here today, things are not getting better. Next slide, please, Alan. So we set up Mind Medicine Australia in 2019, and we did that because there've been minimal improvement in treatment outcomes for over 50 years for the treatment of both depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and also other mental illnesses. But in the case of depression, as few as 15% of sufferers experience remission because half of those figures are placebo. And then after treatment stops, the relapse rates are quite high, and there's very nasty side effects, and these medicines are very difficult to withdraw from. In the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, remission rates are as low as 10% with existing medications. So more of the same is not going to solve the problem. Next slide, thanks, Alan. So we set up Mind Medicine Australia to help alleviate the suffering that is occurring through new treatment innovation, so to expand the treatment options available to doctors and their patients. And we've built a national ecosystem to support the rollout of psychedelic-assisted therapies. We became the first nation in the world to reschedule these medicines through Mind Medicine Australia's work. And in 2023, the TGA decided to reschedule these medicines, and they're now being used in clinical environments. So we're helping with the rollout of clinics. We're Australia's largest legal medicine supplier in a partnership with a Canadian pharmaceutical company. We also have a patient support fund, which I'll talk about in a moment. But our goal is that these therapies are an integral part of our mental health system. That is, they become a first-line treatment, that they continue to achieve the high remission rates we've been seeing across trials around the world of 60 to 80% remission rates after just 2 to 3 treatments with either psilocybin or MDMA with a short course of psychotherapy. 60 to 80% versus the 10 to 15% we mentioned on the previous slide. And our goal as a charity is that these medicines are accessible and affordable to all Australians, no matter their geographic location or financial circumstances. Next slide, please, Lan. So this is what we've achieved over the last 7.5 years. In summary, the world first rescheduling, the largest importer of these medicines. My husband always jokes that he's Australia's largest drug dealer, legal one though. Patients being treated. We also have launched a Mind Medicine Australia clinic in Abbotsford. I'll ask Alan to put a link in the chat for that. We provide consulting support to clinicians wanting to set up clinics. We have this amazing series, which features some extraordinary leaders, and we'll show you who's coming up. We run the world's leading certificate in psychedelic-assisted therapy training, which many of you are graduates of. We also part fund research and so on. Next slide. Thanks, Alan. And this is what happened on the 3rd of, well, after the 3rd of February 2023. There were hundreds of headlines around the world. Australia, ushers in a new era of psychedelic medicine. Australia has officially become the leader in psychedelic-assisted therapies, and we have clinicians and researchers moving to Australia to work in this rapidly emerging field. Next slide. Thanks, Lan. Where we are today, over 250 patients have been treated. We've heard extraordinary outcomes from the psychiatrists and their therapeutic teams, with many of them saying that one dosing session was equivalent to 10 years of therapy for some patients. We're hearing of very important, mostly remission rates. Again, those same remission rates, 60 to 80%. Over 80 authorised prescribers in Australia now, psychiatrists. And we have started this very important patient support fund to support patients in need with up to 50% of the upfront costs of these treatments. We've supported a national registry at Australian National University to collect real-world evidence, real data about patients undergoing these treatments. And next slide. Thank you, Alan. These are the clinics around Australia at the moment. More are starting all the time. And the next slide. Our certificate in psychedelic-assisted therapies, for those that haven't done it yet, our next intake starts in July. It's an extraordinary faculty, and pretty much any medical or allied health professional or anyone who's interested in this field can apply for this and do this training, which takes place over 14 weeks online, and then an incredible 6-day residential. And it's a game changer. Many of the students describe it as the best professional development training they've done in their entire careers. They go on to form lifelong friendships, pods of therapists who then set up clinics together. Lives are changed. It's an amazing training, and it will not only give you therapeutic skills to work with altered states, but it will also give you skills to just sit with patients better and do your work better. So it's an amazing course, and we'll see on the next slide the faculty. So here's some of our leaders, and you'll see there people like Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate, David Nutt, Rick Doblin, and so on. The next slide is more of our faculty, an extraordinary faculty, and we really welcome you to apply. Our next intake applications close on May the 31st. So please get your applications in. Contact us. Ilan will put some links in the chat for this now. Thank you, Ilan. Next slide. And we also have a shorter course, an online course, which is on demand. Next slide. And we always get asked how you can help. So apply for the training. You can apply to volunteer, spread the word, tell your doctors and everyone you know about psychedelic-assisted therapies. There's still a lot of ignorance from the community about these treatments. So we all need to educate everyone we know, attend our educational events, and most importantly, help us fundraise. We're a registered charity and we are making an enormous difference. And it's the end of financial year now till June the 30th. And we welcome donations which are fully tax deductible. Next slide. Thanks, Alan. Patient Support Fund. Yes, we welcome your donations to this in particular. We've already donated over 130,000 Actually, that's out of date now, Alan. And to a number of patients around Australia who otherwise couldn't have afforded these treatments. And we've received some incredible letters, which you can find. Alan will put a link in the chat about the Patient Support Fund. Next slide. And your donations also support clinicians who otherwise couldn't afford this training to get some financial assistance, awareness, and further research in novel conditions, because now these medicines are also being trialed for eating disorders, addictions, fibromyalgia, cluster headaches, Parkinson's, and a whole range of other conditions. Next slide, thank you. And these are some of our wonderful upcoming events. We also have a webinar with, is that there, the Gabor Mate one, Ilan?
No, I'm going to add that that's coming up as well in June, July.
21st of June.
June.
All right, and now let's put the share screen on. I'm thrilled to introduce Dov Baron to you. Dov is on our advisory panel, our Mind Medicine Australia advisory panel. He's the founder of the Emotional Source Code and the Anatomy of Meaning. He's a best-selling author of multiple books and The Art of Belonging, coming out right now. When we send you some follow-up about this webinar, you'll receive a link to order Dov's book. His Dov Baron show is in the top 0.5% of podcasts in the world. And Dov works with high-performing leaders, athletes, entertainers, and political figures, guiding them to find their emotional source code so they can live with purpose and meaning. And we're so looking forward to hearing from you, Dov. Thank you for being with us. It's a privilege to have you here. Please give him a virtual round of applause or whatever you like, some hearts and love.
It's overwhelming. Thank you, Tanya. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to serve.
And we'll put the spotlight on you now too, Dov.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So let's start off with this. First of all, this idea of the emotional source code and what that is, so we can have some frame of reference, because it's likely you've not heard of it before. And you can think of it in some ways as your emotional DNA. And we often spend our lives trying to change behavior. I should tell you that, I've been through many iterations of my life, and I'll just tell you a little bit of backstory before we get to what the emotional source code is. I was born in Northern England about 150 years ago. It feels that way, at least. But I left 47 years ago and traveled the world to study with different spiritual teachers. I started out as a metaphysical student, studying Buddhism, the Tao, Gnostic and Coptic Christianity, Kabbalah, and Vedanta, and studied with Parthasarathy Jaya, who was the dean of the Vedanta University in Bombay. And after many years of doing that, got really tired of meeting people who were spiritual but couldn't get their poo in a pile. And I was like, I don't get it. They could tell me which way my chakra was spinning, but they couldn't hold a relationship together, couldn't do business. I was like, this is very interesting to me. Because at the time I ran businesses on 3 continents. So I was doing that on the side. And so I became fascinated and decided, okay, I'm going to understand the psychology of it, and became a Jungian therapist. And very quickly got tired of listening to people complain, but not do anything. So I happened to meet, when I lived in Perth, Western Australia, because I am a Pommy from Perth. I was living in Perth at the time, and met back in the day when it really mattered, a multi-millionaire called Tim, who was this wonderful gentleman who sort of brought me into the world of business. And I started to meet a lot of very wealthy, successful people. He introduced me to entertainers and athletes and stuff in Australia. And I found that they seemed to have what I called a hole in the soul. There was something missing. So now I had all this spiritual understanding, I had the psychological understanding, I had the business understanding from my own experience and these people. And I was like, something's missing. And in the early 80s, I stumbled into quantum physics and neuroscience. Neuroscience was in its very early days in that time, and quantum physics was quite fringe. But that's what I was studying. And so I began to put all that together and developed a thesis on personal emotional resonance fields, how we all generate an emotional field, and that field is broadcasting out, and it is determined by what's in us. But I wanted to understand what is in us that's generating this field that has whatever it is that shows up in our lives, because it feels kind of random. Maybe it's luck, maybe it's not luck. I didn't know. And so that was the beginning of the work in developing the emotional source code understanding. So I'm going to explain it to you backwards. And what I mean by that is, as I said earlier, most of us start our lives out trying to, we notice something about ourselves. We notice a behavior. We're like, "Oh, you know, it's a really shitty behavior. I wish I could change that." And so we go maybe see a coach or a therapist or someone and say, you know, I've got this terrible behavior and it's not great. And I know I sabotage myself. How do I change that? And that person maybe does some cognitive behavioral therapy with you, and it's great. It works until it doesn't. And you suddenly like, why did I regress? What happened? And you might go back to that person and they say, oh, well, obviously it's something that's happening at a belief level. It's happening at a deeper level. What is the underlying belief? So we begin to underlie the beliefs. So at the top level, we've got the behaviors, and below it, we've got the beliefs and the values. Values are a collection of beliefs. They're a paradigm of beliefs. You must need to work on that. So, okay, so let's go to work on what are my beliefs? And you've probably done some of that work yourself. You probably asked yourself, well, what is my beliefs? What are my values? And you say, well, I believe in this, or my value is family, or it's whatever it might be. Is it? Really? Are you sure? Think of anything you believe right now. Something you stand by. This is my belief. Why? Because what you'll find is if you do the belief work and even the values work, most of the values work is superficial and the belief work is not deep enough. People don't understand it because they don't understand where the belief came from. What is the orientation of the beliefs? Where did they originate? We don't ask that question. We don't know. And so the beliefs don't change the behavior either. So we go, what's below that? Third level down is something called identity. Now, identity, as you are part of this program and the great work that Tanya does, and this organization does, is you have done no doubt, some great work with people and had them go into conflict because this experience is challenging something that is so fundamental in them while they're taking some kind of substance, they're having some experience and it's challenging them and they can't possibly get past it. It's because it's a conflict with the identity. Now, we can talk a lot about addictions and how addictions work and why addictions are there. And Gabo, Mate, and I have talked a lot about this too, that there's no such thing as an addiction without a cause. And the cause is some level of pain. But that pain built an identity. And the truth of the matter is, identity is more addictive than any heroin, any cocaine, or anything else. And people will say, I will ask people a question. I'll say, what is the most vital, most essence thing of life? What is the most important thing of life? And the answer must be surely life itself. To be alive is to survive. And the answer I've got for that is that would make perfect sense. It's what I always believed. Until I read about people who will strap a bomb to themselves and blow themselves up. Maybe life isn't as important as identity. The belief about who I am and what will happen to me. So identity is more powerful than the drive to be alive. So how does that identity become in place? We now go to the second last level. And that's the architecture of meaning, the anatomy of meaning. The anatomy of meaning is the meaning you gave to the environment you were born into, which is your emotional source code, the environment you were born into in order to survive. So what was the identity I had to build in order to survive this lunatic asylum called my childhood? Now, I'm not saying you had a terrible childhood. You might have had, but you might not have had. But you still had to survive it because human beings, we are survivalists. Yes, we can survive. But as children, we're terrible at survival. I mean, you think about a giraffe or an elephant, the baby drops out. What does it do? It starts walking behind mom. A baby drops out of a human being. What does it do? It lives in a basement till he's 35 and plays video games and asks for money and please pay my bills. Like, we're not very good at being on our own. We need connection. We need bond. We need survival. So we work out how we can do that. That's the architecture of meaning. So now I'm going back up that rhythm again. So the bottom is the emotional source code, which is the milieu, it's the environment you were born into. The architecture of meaning, the emotional architecture of meaning, is what I've decided whatever this is, means in order for me to survive. Now, that means that twins, two identical people, identical twins can be born in exactly the same environment and build completely different meaning because they're deciding how to survive. So they build this architecture of meaning. And in order to do that, it's who do I have to be in order to survive? That identity gets to be put in place, and immediately it's in place. Now it goes, okay, what values, what beliefs do I need to have in order to support this? My behaviors naturally flow from that. Is this making sense to everybody at this point before I go deeper with everybody? Good. So now let's take a look at this, because there's a piece in here that I haven't mentioned. Got to go thumbs up, so that's good. Thank you. So let's talk about the deeper part of this, because that's the 5 levels of the emotional source code structure. But there's something in there that I didn't say yet. That central piece, which I said is the identity, which is the strongest piece of all, that piece in there, in order for you to survive the environment, you built the identity. Now, let me put something forward to you. I want you to think about this, and you can answer it in the chat. Okay? I want you to put a 1-word answer in the chat. Doesn't matter what answer you put. It's okay, whatever you choose. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my childhood, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So, I was born in Northern England in abject poverty, surrounded by crime, violence, addiction, physical and sexual abuse. All that was going on in my childhood. And not occasionally, this was the milieu. This was the environment on a regular basis, all day long. Now imagine you're a child born in that environment. I'm going to ask you for a 1-word answer to put in the chat. What can't I be? So what sort of elements of a human being am I not allowed to express? What would it be ill-advised for me to show up as? What would be your 1-word answer? Let me see some of the things. Weak, open, emotional. These are very good. Safe as a result. Yeah, exactly. Vulnerable, empathetic, needy, loving, honest. Great answers. Great answers. So what's interesting is all those things become disenfranchised because I can't survive in the environment if I let that show. So the fact that I was having spiritual experiences when I was a 7-year-old had to be very quickly boxed up and pushed away. The fact that I was an artist and I was creative had to be boxed up and pushed away. The fact that I was incredibly empathetic and very soft and sensitive and very feeling had to be put away. All that had to become disenfranchised. So the identity that I built to survive had to stay in place, but I had to also create this disenfranchised self that had to be boxed away. So is that me? Yes. Is it acceptable? Hell no, not if I'm going to survive. So I go into denial of that. That's not, now, to be clear, that's not me. That's all of us. It's what we did. So if you're the kind of person who's ever said, oh, I'm just not creative, that's your disenfranchised self. Well, I'm just not an angry person. I don't get angry. Bullshit, that's your disenfranchised self. Anything you will deny belongs in your disenfranchised self. You've pushed it away, not because you're a bad person, not because you're an ignorant person, but because you had to in order to survive. Because there was some threat that made you say, I can't be that. So you disenfranchise parts. Now, some of us did it a lot. Some of us did it less, but we all did it. And we lose access to that part of ourselves. Now, here's what's interesting. We'll often think of these disenfranchised selves from the context of the label we put on them when we were children, which is, that's bad. So if I'd have showed I was sensitive and weak, I would get my ass kicked. So that's bad. So what did I become? I became strong. I became tough. I became a boxer. I became a martial artist. I became a bodybuilder. All those things showed up because it was the opposite to this, because that was weak and that would be too painful and too vulnerable. We all disenfranchise things and then we make those things bad. But they're not bad. They're just disenfranchised. Now, here's the thing, as we become more aware, and this is what's really quite fascinating about how psychedelic therapy can be very helpful in getting into a non-ordinary state, is you can start to collapse not the identity, but the walls between the identity, and have some access to the disenfranchised parts of ourselves. So we can start welcoming that back, because it's not bad. It just was bad in the environment. You didn't do it because you were bad. You did it because it didn't feel safe to have it. And what's interesting about it is that that identity will begin to show up in all kinds of ways, whether it's the pronounced identity or the disenfranchised. So I'll give you another example. My wife is a beautiful Indo-Fijian lady. So if you met her, you would say the same thing everybody does, which is, oh my God, she's beautiful and she has such warmth. Like, her name actually means Mother Earth. Her name is Renuka. It means Mother Earth. And she looks like that. She looks like she's all welcoming. She's got bright, sparkly eyes. She has a big smile. She's very warm. And everybody finds her to be incredibly nurturing. And if you see a resting face photograph of my wife, she always has a smile. Now, if you see my resting face, I have resting asshole face. You may be familiar with that. It looks like I might beat you up. But those faces are actually our emotional source code manufactured onto our face. So people would say, well, if your childhood was really rough and tough, and that's why you've got resting asshole face, your wife must have had a wonderful childhood. And the answer is no. My wife's childhood was awful too. It was quite brutal, but her father was a preacher, a minister, and a missionary who had 5 children who were always on display and always had to display that this is a beautiful, happy family and we're very happy. So everything was always automatically a smile. So it became a manufactured onto her face. I wasn't required to show that, so I showed the pain that I was in, and I showed the anger that I was feeling, and that got framed into my physicality on my face. So I have to remember to smile because my resting face is resting asshole face, but I could be in a great mood. But you don't know that because my face is going to go to my default position that came from my emotional source code. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to understand what built the identity, which comes from the architecture of meaning, and what is in the disenfranchised part so we can bring it back. Now, not everything in the disenfranchised part is fantastic. Some of it's crappy and you put it there on purpose, but a lot of it has value. So for instance, you go, well, I know I put my anger over there and anger's bad. No, anger's great. If you want to know about the people who made a difference in the world, they made a difference because they were angry enough to make a difference in the world. They were pissed off enough to say no. Now, they may not have done it with violence, because anger and violence are different things, but they did it with fuel that is the same emotional place in our being as anger. That passion is fuel. That anger is fuel. They're no different. It's just a different application. So a lot of people will find that they're saying, I'm looking for my purpose. I've searched for my purpose. I read Simon Sinek's book, start with why. I've read that. It was really great. I think I found my why. And I say, okay, well, share it with me. And they share it with me. I go, that's not your purpose. And they go, why would you say that? I'm not being rude. I'm not trying to upset you. But I can hear what you've just described to me is nothing more than something you manufactured. Your purpose is not manufactured. It's in you. It's something that you go, that's it. I got it. That's it. It resonates at all kinds of levels. And this is important, initially, it will feel very uncomfortable. If your purpose didn't make you feel uncomfortable as well as excited, it's probably not your purpose. Some part of you went, ooh, that's a bit much. That's a bit big. I'm not entirely comfortable. I like it, but these things can happen for us. We get uncomfortable with it because it's asking us to bring in parts of ourselves we've not accessed before. It can help us to get contact with that part. So now I want to give you the path to that, if I may. Anybody interested in that path? Give me some kind of sign in the chat. Give me some thumbs up or something if you're interested in getting on that path of purpose. Good. Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I want you to think about your childhood. You don't have to tell me any details. You don't have to tell anybody any details, but I want you to think about your childhood. Now, you know your childhood and you know the parts of it that you've buffered over. You've said, it wasn't that bad. And you know that that's not, that's the stories we make up. And you may very well be a very loving and kind and forgiving person. And you've said to, oh, well, I know my mom and dad did the best they could with what they know. Right? So, or what they knew. So, I can forgive my mom and dad. So let me just help you find your purpose by telling you this. That is more BS. And you go, but I have forgiven my parents. No, I'm not saying you haven't. But it's not forgiveness in the way that I'm talking about it. So the way I'm talking about it is this. You, whoever you are, let's say Amanda, because she's in front of me on my screen right now, you might go, I've forgiven my mom and dad because my dad was this or he's that, but I understand he was a alcoholic or my mother was a whatever. Okay. But the problem is that's you, Amanda, the adult. You, the adult, has forgiven them, but the child doesn't know that. You see, when you were a kid, so when I was a kid and I was really poor and I was in the crib and my dad was hitting me in the face or screaming at my mother or whatever it was, I didn't stand on the edge of the crib going, I think my father's got some issues. He probably should do some therapy. I didn't do that because I didn't have that cognition. I was traumatized. So you, as an adult, can forgive your parents, but you bypass the child. And if you bypass the child, you don't get to the connection of your true identity, including disenfranchised, and you don't get to understand the anatomy of meaning, and you don't get to truly forgive. So yes, the adult me can forgive those things, but what does the child me think? What does the child me feel that was never heard? What is the voice that was never listened to? So ask that kid what it needed. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. You write the question down. You don't have to answer it right now. It's okay. But you can later if you want, or you can just go away and work with it. And that is this. You can write it down. As a child, and when I say child, we're looking at under the age of 11. As a child, what did I need that I couldn't get or couldn't get enough of? So I was working with a surgeon out of the UK as one of my clients. Wasn't at the time, but he was just becoming one of my clients. And I asked him that question. And he goes, now this is his exact words. I don't believe in all this West Coast bullshit. And I said, oh, that's okay. I don't either. Good. So let's move forward. He goes, I got everything I needed. And I go, well, I doubt that. That's not possible. Even if you had exceptional parents, it's not possible to meet every need of the child. It's just not. You can have great parents and it's still not possible. You're going to have something you need. So he was like, oh, well, in that case, okay, then, well, I guess time with my father. So I said, okay, cool. I wait 10 seconds. He goes, well, no, that's not true. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, I had time with my father. And I go, oh, great. Tell me about it. He said, I went fishing with my father. I said, oh, great. Was that good? He goes, it was fantastic. I've forgotten how great that was. I go, excellent. How many times did you go fishing with your dad? He said, he puts his head down. Once. I said, do you think you needed more than that? Do you think that little boy might have needed a bit more than that? And he goes, you're good. You're good at this. Because we all have these needs. By the way, he's now my number one promoter in the world. I have lots of British surgeons who are my clients because of him. But that's the point. So the adult us goes into denial of the child's needs. I got it. That's the adult assessment. But did the kid get it in the way that it needed in the amount that it needed? I got love from my mom. Did I get the kind of love I needed? Hell no. I even got some love from my dad. But did I get what I needed? Hell no. But I have to acknowledge that child first. That's where I'll get in touch with that. So then I come back to this question that I asked you. As a child, what did I need that I couldn't get or couldn't get enough of? I would like for you to, short version of it, put it into the chat. I'd like to see it, please, if you don't mind. Be brave. I promise I won't judge you on it. Safety and calm, great acceptance, fabulous. Love, support, praise, compliments, wonderful. Attention, approval. Allowed to have a voice, time, presence. Wonderful. These are great answers. Thank you. To be heard, physical contact, attention, positivity, a voice. These are awesome. Physical contact, hugs. Yeah, these are awesome. Great, great answers. Thank you for going to that. Now, before we go any further, you can keep going with these as you like, but just so it's good for you even to write them. But here's the thing. What did you replace that with? That's the question. So whatever you wrote, what did you replace that with? Because that is an intrinsic need inside of your emotional source code. And so you will have to have that need met. But if you don't have it met in a healthy way, you will have it met in an unhealthy way. So I'll give you this understanding, which I think will help you. Let me ask you this simple question. What is love? Can anybody answer that question? And by that, I don't mean, ooh, I'm hot for you and let's get together. What is love? An energy. Yep, that's true. Oneness. Don't give me your spiritual right answers. What is love? A verb. That's a good answer. So I'll re-ask the question this way. Psychologically, what is love? And I'll tell you. Psychologically, love is the 3 A's. Somebody's almost there. Psychologically, love is the 3 A's. Attention, acceptance, approval. That's love. That's what you translate to love psychologically. Attention, acceptance, approval. So I want love. I'm a child. I want love. I need love. And the translation of that in my psychology as a child is attention, acceptance, approval. Now, here's what's fascinating about that. If I don't get it, I will pursue the negative version of it. So here's the example. The three eldest children in my family, I'm the eldest. I had a sister who was 3 years younger than me and a brother who was 4 years younger than me. If you'd even met, this is not a truth. It's a facsimile, meaning this is true if it was not in the scene. The scene is false, but the words are true. So if the three of us were sitting on the couch and my mom came in with her friend, she would have said, because she said these things truly to each of us, but she would have said with the three of us, she would have said to her friend, "This is Dov. He's my eldest. He's a good boy. He takes care of his siblings. He cleans the house. Yeah, he's only 7, but he can already cook. And he's my counselor, and he makes me laugh, and he holds me when I cry." I'm getting all that spotlight, that love, attention, acceptance, and approval in that moment. So what am I going to learn to do? All the things she just said, right? Because she just told me, this is how you get it. Here's the code, Dove. Keep doing this. So I go, okay, I want more love. I'll do that. And then she went, "This is Jane. She's my daughter. Isn't she beautiful?" And my mom, because we're old, my mom would wrap her hair in rags to make it curly. If you're young, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but just think of it as the cheapest version of curl as you can imagine. And she would make her look pretty. And her identity was being in pretty. And then she would have looked at the third of our siblings. There's a lot more than 3, but we were the 3 eldest. And she would have said this, and because these were her actual words many times, "This is Lee. He's my little bastard. He's always causing trouble. He sets stuff on fire. He holds kids up in the alleyway with a knife. And I have to pin his name and address on his back because he'll jump on buses and end up another town away." Now, can you imagine those 3 kids getting those messages? But imagine it now, not from my place, but from Lee's place, my younger brother. He would have looked up at Jane and went, "Well, I can't be the girl. I can't be pretty. So no point in doing that. I still need love, attention, acceptance, and approval. So, okay. And I can't be the good boy because Dov's got that covered. He's got it covered much better than I could possibly do it. How do I get it? I know. I'll blow shit up. I'll set things on fire. I'll hold kids up in the alleyway with a knife and steal their money." Attention, acceptance, approval. Positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Now, by the way, some of us outgrow that. I went on a long journey and stopped being that person. And when I stopped being that person, and I started setting healthy boundaries with my mom, you know what she said to me? "Whatever happened to my loving, caring son?" And I said, "Ask anybody who knows me. I'm still here. But I have boundaries now." Because for my mom, it meant no boundaries. My sister, even though she was my sister's past, even though she was straight, you would have thought she was gay. She just gave up everything about femininity. She just didn't care. She had super short hair. She was kind of butch looking, and she didn't care. She polarized that response that she got from my mom. And Lee became a professional criminal. It was built into the emotional source code based on survival. It's the very thing that had me become a therapist first. It was based in that survival. But once you deal with that work and you start looking at the disenfranchised parts and you bring those home, you get empowered to fulfill your purpose and find the true purpose of your life. The deepest possible meaning. Now, with that, I'm going to give you a chance to ask me questions because you might have one or two. And by the way, you can ask me anything you want. I'm fully happy to answer you anything you want. Is that okay with time, Tanya?
Yeah. No, that's really
Okay.
great, Dolph. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
Ilan, if we can put the collective group on screen, please, that'd be really great so that we can see everyone. I can't even see Ilan right now, but hopefully I will in a second. Ilan, can we see everyone?
Sorry, I will take Dov. I'm off spotlight, but you're going to change your view on your end.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. So let's see the questions. And also we may have we can open a mic. Josephine, I think you've had a question for ages. So would you like,
No, she didn't put her hand down.
maybe she didn't. Josephine, do you have a question? Let's just see. Alan, can you see that for me?
Sorry, Josephine, I have unmuted you, but she has just replied in the chat to say that she doesn't have a question anymore.
She
Okay.
says she doesn't.
Fantastic.
You can put everybody on screen, Tanya, at the bottom
Oh, okay.
where it says participants.
Oh, participants. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got you. Okay. So what questions do we have in the chat, Alan?
Have a look. How would you define the difference between love and obsession?
Oh, well, the truth of the matter is that psychologically you might not be able to make the difference. You may not know how to do that unless you've done some work on yourself. But obsession at a simple level is you seeing something in that person that is a gap in you. The obsession is with trying to get something that you feel you don't have. That is what an obsession is. Love doesn't have that. Real love doesn't have that. Love is attention, acceptance, and approval, but it always had healthy boundaries. So there's a lot of new age woo-woo nonsense about if you're going to love somebody, you just love them unconditionally. So let me ask you this question. Okay, let's imagine that your partner is a dog and your partner comes in and takes a poop on the rug. Do you go, oh, I love you? Or do you get pissed off? You get pissed off because it's a breaking of a boundary. It's not unconditional. If you don't have conditions, you don't understand love. Healthy boundaries are your condition for love. If you beat the snot out of me and I go, I love you, I'm just showing you that I have no self-worth. I'm not showing you that I love anybody. I'm showing you I have no self-worth, and just stomp all over me as much as you like. Love has healthy boundaries. That's how you know it's real. But you can't have those healthy boundaries if you don't understand your own disenfranchised self, if you don't understand the mechanism you built to survive. Because you're pursuing something that you didn't get met in your childhood.
Yeah, that's great. There's another question here. Forgiveness. You mentioned the adult maybe can do this, but the child hasn't. This resonates. I've not been able to deeply forgive. Any advice? That's a great question there.
It's a great question. And if you've not been able to deeply forgive, congratulations. That means you're actually on track and you're not trying to do it with your head, because most people's version of forgiveness is head stuff. It's not real. It's the right thing to do. They've reframed it. As I said, oh, my mom and dad were, my mom was a damaged individual and that's why she did that. That's true. And I encourage you to have enormous amounts of love and compassion for that person. But that's different than looking at this kid. So you have to do this with the kid. And so my advice to whoever that was it Michelle? I can't remember. Somebody anyway, whoever that was, is what I would challenge you to do is to get some private time where you won't be disturbed. And this is an exercise I give my clients all the time. And I want you to write very simple language. So I want you to imagine you're writing to somebody who's 7 or younger. And you're going to write to them. So, dear, and by the way, it's best to pick the nickname of the child. If you had a nickname as a kid, right to that nickname. So, what's it like in your house? Simple questions. Open-ended, not yes, no, but open-ended. And then with your non-dominant hand, have the kid write back to you. Now, with your non-dominant hand, you're not going to be able to write a big story. It's going to be very simple. And at first, it's going to be really awkward and feel weird. But if you keep it up, the communication will get clear and you'll have access to your unconscious mind. You'll start accessing that part of your, meaning architecture that tells you why this kid feels the way they do and how they are trying to survive this environment. That's how you get to real forgiveness.
That's a fascinating exercise, Dolph, and I'm writing that down.
Powerful.
Really powerful.
I've got a bookshelf full of journals without those in.
Mm-hmm. The thing that really struck me in your talk just now is that identity is more addictive than any other substance. I think that's just such a powerful insight, and I'd love you to talk to that just a little bit more and how that disfigures,
Sure. Absolutely. So, first of all, at a neuroscientific level, neurobiology, every time as we all know, neurons that fire together wire together. Mm-hmm. So if you build a mechanism in your brain for survival that becomes your identity, you build these neural pathways that are so thick and so fast that you don't have to think about them. And that's the idea. They're heretic, meaning they take shortcuts on everything. So as you can see, if you're watching this on a screen, you can see that to my right, that way over there, yeah, it says stay curious. And after traveling the world and doing all the studies I did, people ask me, what's your religion? And I say, my religion is curiosity. And people say, I'm very curious. And I go, are you? Yeah. Are you sure? I think so. How do you know? Well, I'm always asking questions. Doesn't mean you're curious. For a lot of people, asking questions is looking for validation of what it is they believe. It's not actually asking a question. It's looking for validation. Why? And not because there's anything wrong with that person, not because they don't understand anything, but because in the architecture of meaning, you've already framed meaning. So you've already made a decision about the question you're asking. So curiosity is downstream of meaning. It's not upstream, it's downstream. So we've got to look at meaning first. So we build this identity and it builds all these neural pathways, and it's such a powerful heretic, so powerful at shortcutting information. So your brain is not designed for you to be happy. Your brain is not designed for you to be successful. Whoever told you that, that's nonsense. Your brain is designed for one reason and one reason only: survival. Not happiness, not joy, not love, survival. How do I survive? And guess what? You learned how to survive before you were 7. Now, did it get compounded afterwards? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not saying it didn't. But the most of it took place before you were 7. Actually, most of it took place before you were 4. Before you're 4, you're in a delta state, which means you have no filter. You're just taking stuff in. You move more into an alpha state between 4 and 7, and then you're bouncing around from after that, between then and sort of 14, you're bouncing around in alpha beta. But most of the stuff's just pouring in. And you've built these mechanisms for survival. So everything becomes perceived as, is this a threat to my survival? So in life, we go through stages. I'm sure you're aware of this. And the first stage is this. First stage of life is gimme, 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 right? You're hungry. What do? You cry. You're sad. What do? You cry. You get attention. You're always trying to get attention, acceptance, approval to survive. That's what you do as a baby. I wonder if there's anybody on here who has recently had a child, like within the last year. Oh, fabulous. There are some of you. Fantastic. That's wonderful. So here's what you'll notice. Your child will, smile at you and goo goo gaga. It's manipulating you. It will cry. It's manipulating you. Do you know that children flirt? All children flirt. It's not a sexual flirtation, but it's a flirtation. It's trying to seduce you. It's pulling you in to get its needs met. If it works, it goes, okay, check that box. That works. That becomes a strategy for life. And that becomes built into the identity. So now you're saying, oh, listen, you're 35 and you got to stop flirting with everybody. That person goes, I'm going to die. It feels like I'm going to die. You want to take away this from my identity? Hell no.
Fascinating. And what do you think? There's a question here that I want to answer, but I just want to follow on from what you've just been saying first, and that is that there seems to be an enormous deficit of curiosity in the world right now. Is that because there's an enormous lack of meaning? Like, is that the correlation that you're referring to, or is there some other reason for all of this?
That is a fantastic question, Sonia. Fantastic question. There is a massive lack, and the lack of curiosity is always a result of threat.
Right.
Remember, I said we're trying to survive. Now that survival is subjective, individual, and then collective, meaning tribal. So it might be my group of friends or my family, but it might also be my state or my nation or my faith, my religion, my group of people who use psilocybin. We're trying to survive as a tribe as well. And the more we feel like there's a potential for us to lose our tribe, the more heuristic we get, meaning we shortcut to black, white, right, wrong, and we move to tribal thinking. The moment you move to tribal thinking, curiosity is backed. It's shoved away. It's not important. You can't have curiosity when under threat. That's a training. You have to train your brain in a really fierce way to learn to be curious when you're under threat. It's that is a mental exercise well worth pursuing, but it's rare. So yes, you're absolutely right. We're seeing less and less curiosity. So one of the challenges I will give you is find someone, I know you know them, they're probably in your family, find someone who has some dickhead belief system that you really want to just slap them upside the head with a wet banana and say, what is wrong with you? And instead, listen to them. Become curious. So you say, I'm making up a name. You know, Mike, I've known you for whatever period of time, and I always thought of you as a really intelligent person, even if you don't really think that. I've always thought of you as an intelligent person, and I'm really fascinated why it is that you believe this. You've leveraged them in saying, I see you as an intelligent person. So they're not going to give you a dumb answer. You're going to make them think. And you're going to say, tell me, like, as an intelligent person, tell me how it is that you came to that. Just because I want to understand. Oh, so if they're defensive, they go, oh, you're just going to make me wrong. No, I really want to understand. I want to understand. And you force yourself into curiosity, no matter what they say. And you don't let them change the subject. Well, I believe this because, and I'm making it up here, the left are all crazy. No, that's what you believe about the left. But I'm asking you, as an intelligent person, tell me why you believe this specific thing. I want to understand. I'm trying to understand you. I want to have a better relationship with you. I'm not going to let you to go to generalizations. I want you to be specific with me because I want to understand you. Tell me why you see that. And what you'll find is when somebody has that embedded mentality, it's because they're operating out of either or. And what you're doing is moving them out of that. You're giving them a position where they can stand a little bit in the middle. So just so you know, I have friends who are very conservative, as in they voted Trump, and I have friends who are very liberal, who, you know, think Trump should be blown up as the nearest possible option. I can be friends with both because that's not who they are. I know that's not who they are because I bothered to find out who they are.
Mm,
Their
fascinating.
opinion is an opinion. Okay. But tell me intellectually why you chose this. You're a smart person. Explain this to me. And guess what? There's always common ground. And so if you, as you said in the intro, Tonya, I have a podcast. It's the Dov Baron Show. And every Wednesday, there's an opposite episode. It's called The Polymathic Perspective. It's just me. The one on Sundays is my guest. Tonya's been a guest. So I have all these wonderful guests on there. But on Wednesday, it's just me. And I give a polymathic perspective, meaning I look at a subject from multiple different lenses. So I look at it from global economics, geopolitics, psychology, quantum physics, whatever it might be. I look at it through all these different lenses. And to do that, I have to remain out of extremes in either side. I have to talk about it from a place of pushing myself into the center so that I can actually hear this and this.
Yes, it reminds me very much of that Rumi quote, you know, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. If we could only do that more often and get into the field, it would make life very, very different. There's a question here by Michelle. What if you genuinely can't remember your childhood or what you needed? How can I get deeper to those parts of feeling and understanding that part of who I was as a child?
It's a great question. So thank you, Michelle. So first of all, there are a lot of people who can't remember their childhood. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but I want to explain this in a way that if you're working with anybody in a therapeutic environment, this will help you. So you can use this as a strategy for understanding. So memory does not exist without emotion. Doesn't exist without emotion. And I'll give you an example. If you went to school and you had a shitty teacher that you didn't particularly like, you probably didn't learn much. If that teacher left between forms, between years, and you got another teacher who you liked, who taught the same subject, you became good at it because there was emotion involved. You got positive emotion, so you attached to the information. Emotion and memory go side by side. They're hand in hand. Now, here's the diagram I want you to get in your head because this will help you in your work. I want you to imagine a clock that is 9 o'clock on one side and 3 o'clock on the other. So you got that half circle, okay? And between 9 o'clock and noon, the emotion there, so if it's at 9 o'clock, there's very little emotion. At 10, there's more. At 11, there's way more. And by the time it reaches 12, it's a massive amount of powerful connected energy, connected emotion. All the information in that side you are going to remember, and the amount of emotion will determine how detailed the memory is. So if something has got the emotional content of 11:30, it's going to be remembered much more deeply than it would if it had the emotional content of 9:30. Does that make sense for everybody so far? Yep. Okay, good. So now I want you to think of it this way, that once that emotion pours over past noon, past midnight, and starts going on to the other side, and now it goes into 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the more emotion that it becomes, then it becomes in overwhelm. And the more overwhelmed it becomes, the more compartmentalized it becomes. So that memory is still full of emotion, but it's not safe. So you lock it away, you compartmentalize it. Now it's not gone. This is really important. It's not gone. I know it's not gone because it's got emotion connected to it. but the emotion is overwhelming for the person you were when you had it. So you went through an incredible trauma and you don't remember. You know you went through it. You have the scars. Maybe, forgive me, but maybe you survived rape and you were 25 years old. That's pretty dramatic. And you're certainly old enough to remember it, but you don't remember the incident because it's overwhelming. The trauma was too much. It's still there. It's the same with your childhood. So you don't remember it because there's pieces of it that were just overwhelming. Now, overwhelming does not mean dramatic. It can mean that, but it's not limited to dramatic. It can be so overwhelming that it's devastating, that there's no way to get my needs met, that it all gets shut down.
Hmm.
It all gets shut down. So the question becomes, I don't remember my childhood, and I don't remember what I need. Now, here's the answer. And this is not just for the people who can't remember their childhood. Remember the question from before? What is it as a child I needed most that I couldn't get? Now you ask someone who's in a relationship with you, what do I appear to need most that I never seem to be satisfied with? It's the same thing. If you don't remember it from your childhood, it's the same thing. It's morphed. It's changed form a little bit. It'll look a bit different, but it is exactly the same thing. If you're an applause whore, that's what you needed as a kid. You needed attention. You needed to be recognized. If you are a touch hoe, which is what I like to call myself, if you love touch, that's what you needed. What is it you still need so much of? It's the same need from childhood. So that's the answer to, I think it was Michelle.
Yeah, and that sort of reminds me of that wonderful book. I'm sure you've read it, of the Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. It's amazing.
Harville
book.
Hendrix, his work is brilliant. Getting the Love You Want, Keeping the Love You Find, both brilliant books. Highly recommend them. I did my training with Harville in 1998. 2 weeks ago.
Amazing. There's a question here. How does one align their boundaries for true love with their partner? How does one bridge the gap as much as possible?
I'm not sure I know what the last part means.
Ilan, is this your question? Because if it is, you might want to just say it out loud.
Sorry. So, Dov,
Sounds like your question.
Dov, someone sent me that question privately from the chat. So the question is, and there are always two partners involved in any sort of relationship, whether it's personal, business, etc. And there's always going to be a gap between, their boundaries. But how does one bring them as close to how does one bring them as close as possible?
Question's not any clearer, by the way. Not at all. But I'm going to
two people have got two separate set of boundaries. How does one bring those boundaries as close as possible so those people can be aligned?
You don't bring boundaries closer. It's a different subject. That's why I'm confused. It's a different subject. So let me see if I can answer it the way that what I think is being asked, and if maybe it's not, but we'll see. So first of all, my boundaries are not your boundaries. They don't need to be your boundaries. My boundaries have got nothing to do with you. My boundary has absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. My boundary is not about making you do anything. It's just telling you what works for me. That's it. It's not personal at all. My boundary is for me. So that's number one. If your boundary is about someone else, it's not a boundary, it's a rule. And rules are black holes for joy. Get rid of it. They suck the life out of everything that's good. You don't want rules. The boundary
how does one
is
differentiate
about you.
Between a boundary and a
work
rule?
With you. I'm sorry?
So how does one differentiate between a boundary and a rule?
Very simple. Rules are about them. Boundaries are about me.
Very good.
Right? So, for instance, I'll give you an example. For instance, you want to smoke? You want to smoke cigarettes? Absolutely. Please go ahead. Enjoy yourself. Smoke yourself into the grave. It's none of my business. You want to smoke around me in my home or kiss me after you've smoked or hug me after you've smoked? Absolutely not. I have a hard boundary about it. I'm allergic to cigarette smoke. I find it quite disgusting and I want to vomit. It's got nothing to do with you. I have no problem with you smoking. I just have a problem with it being in my environment. Nothing to do with you. If your boundary looks like it's about them, it's not a boundary, it's a rule. Rules are for people who are trying to control other people. I'm not interested in that. I want to protect my own environment. I want to take care of myself. I want to be self-loving, so I'll have healthy boundaries.
Mm.
When my wife and I first got together and I said, "Are you monogamous?" My wife said, "Yes, of course." And I said, "Why, of course?" "I don't understand. There's no such thing as of course. Why?" She said, "I am." She goes, "Are you not?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I am." She goes, "Well, I don't understand." I said, "I just want you to know you are free to sleep with anybody you want." She went, "What? Really? I don't want to sleep with anybody else." I said, No, you are free to sleep with anybody. You might meet somebody and you fall madly in lust with them. You're free to sleep with anybody you want. I just want you to know that I have a boundary that if you do that, the relationship's over. Because that's not who I want to have a relationship with. But I will never stop you from doing it. It's none of my business. You're free to make any choice you want, but you do have to know that my boundary is the consequence.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you can't do it. That would be controlling you. I'm telling you can do whatever you want. I'm not interested in controlling you. But I am interested in making sure that you know where my boundary is.
So then I think the question is more about respecting boundaries of both partners.
Well, so very clearly, nobody can respect your boundaries if you're not clear about what the boundary is. And most people aren't. They're throwing around a bunch of rules, calling them boundaries. So it causes all kinds of problems. So they've not actually done enough inner work to understand what a boundary is. So you can't really set a boundary if you don't have enough self-awareness. It's just, you're going to be saying bullshit. It's not real. So do the self-work, identify what it is within you, and then look at how it impacts and how it's going to impact you. Then you can set that boundary. That's number one. You got to have the self-knowledge first.
Yeah.
That's
very good.
Thank you.
Jeff White here. Identity is tearing the world apart and leading to the insanity and destruction we see amongst humanity. Identity politics is especially toxic, it's being used by wealthy elites to further divide an already fractured world. The ultimate problem is that most humans would rather destroy the planet than let go of their identity. That's the addiction right there, right? And as all other species would say about people, humans aren't the only species on the planet. Most of them just act like it, which is the ultimate of ultimate problems. We have an anthropocentric view, but actual reality is ecocentric, which transcends humans and their obsession with identity. Any comment on that one?
Yeah. Good statement about your identity, Jeff. You just all you did was you just gave me an identity statement. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's just your identity statement. That was an ego statement. I know you won't like that term. That's an ego statement about your identity. So what I would challenge you to do is look at the opposite and say, where is that true? What have you disenfranchised? Because you're just as ego identified as they are the people that you're pointing the finger at. For you to write something that strong about your about them is saying a hell of a lot about you. Oh, I'm a very loving person, and people in the world are too hateful and they're too angry. Really? Okay. I guess you've disenfranchised your own anger.
Interesting.
We
Jeff,
very much love. See, all the stuff that he's complaining about here is ego identity, and it's about these polarized identities. Well, you just polarized in a statement. Anybody who doesn't agree with you is wrong. No, they're not. They disagree with you. Doesn't mean they're wrong. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe there's something they've never even considered. Are there some dickheads in the world? Yeah, I know them. There are. But there's a lot of ignorant people in the world who don't even consider something because it never came to them. And on top of that, there are also people in the world who have mental illness and have no interest in solving it. Right? There are people who are narcissistic, sociopathic, all those kinds of things and have no interest in it. I work with very powerful people, and some of them are like, when I start out, it's like, ooh, you know what I mean? Not sure if you really want any help. And they'll say, well, could you help? I mean, this is one question I've gotten on interviews lots and lots of times. Could you help Donald Trump? And the answer is no. And they go, why? Because he doesn't want it. He likes his identity. That's very evident. And he likes that identity and he's addicted to it, so he wouldn't want to give it up. So I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not here to make him wrong for it. Is there a consequence to what he does? Yes. Do I like those consequences? No, I don't. But I'm not making him wrong. I understand that in philosophical sense that none of us are bad. And what I mean by that is ask a shitty person who's doing shitty things why they're doing it, and they'll say it's for a good reason. If you watch the Marvel movies, I am not a fan of them. I don't watch them. But there was a character in one of the last ones called Thanos. And Thanos wanted to wipe out half of the universe. Why? It seemed like he was such an evil character. And then you find out at the end of that story, no, he just thought there was too many people, too many entities living, and they were bleeding the universe dry. So he had to take away half the population. Because there's no such thing as a bad guy in the mind of a bad guy. It doesn't exist.
So Megan says, is it bad to have an identity then?
No, it's not bad to have an identity, but it's bad to have a fixed identity. It doesn't serve you. It's let your identity evolve by keep looking in the disenfranchised parts of yourself. So when you see something out there that pisses you off or upsets you, go, hold on a second. Well, what is that in me? You don't live in the world. In my new book in here, there's a chapter in here called The Mirror. And in it, it says very clearly, you don't live in the world, you live in the mirror. There's no such thing as the world. It's a reflection of you. What pisses you off is a reflection of you. What delights you is a reflection of you. Now, it might be a reflection of what's disenfranchised. I'll give you that. You might go, oh, I'm just not very artistic and I just love art. Oh, you've disenfranchised art. It's still part of you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joel.
You look at Tanya and you go, oh, I wish I could sing. My voice sounds like a cat peeing on a salmon tin. Well, maybe you've disenfranchised your voice.
Yeah, because everyone has a voice and everyone can sing. As I talk about in my TED Talk.
All kinds of things we say don't exist in us, but they do. And so there's nothing wrong with having an identity. And by that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with showing up. You don't want to be all wishy-washy. You want to show up. But you also want to be completely open to, is this me? So I'll give you a simple example. Very simple example. We talked about finding your purpose in life. And I said that most people don't get that. They don't really understand that. So if I am a straight male, just to be clear, if you'd have asked me what is my purpose in life and that I should follow that for a career, I would have become a manager at Victoria's Secret. That job would not interest me at all as a man in my 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. That's not the meaning of my life. Because it's transitory. Purpose is not transitory. Meaning applied to purpose, which is called passion, is transitory. The passions change. I was passionate when I was 11 years old. My art was in galleries. My passion was art. Everybody believed I would be an artist, including me. I don't even draw anymore, and I don't miss it. It's not like, oh, I've disenfranchised that. No, I am artistic in a million other ways, but not with pen and paper, or not with pencil and paper, or not with paints. It's another way. I'm not attached to it, whatever it is. So the identity problem is when we get attached to something. It's not true. Psilocybin is not the only therapy in the world. MDMA is not the only therapy in the world. When I studied neuro-linguistic programming with Bandler in the very early 90s, I thought it was the panacea. I thought it was the greatest thing on earth. Nothing could be as good as this. And then I realized, it's great for my toolbox. Is it the perfect thing? No. Is there times when I would rather recommend psilocybin or MDMA or ketamine or something else? Yeah. Would I recommend it every time? No, because everything is subjective and everything is in the moment. I'm not have to be attached to what it is. Oh, I'm an EMDR therapist, or I'm a this therapist, or I'm a that therapist. So what? That's just another identity. Don't cling to it.
Mm.
I've got lots of things in my toolbox, and guess what I'll use? Whatever the hell works.
Well, Dov, it's nearly time for us to wrap up, and if any of you have some comments you'd like to put into the chat to thank Dov, we'd be love to see those. And Dov, I've got one last question for you. You know that I spent a week living with Ramdas, and he said that we're all walking each other home. How do you feel we can all be walking each other home in this world the way it is right now?
Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious. And by that, I mean challenge yourself to genuinely stay curious.
Mm.
Not looking for the answers you want, but to be curious about the other human being. Donald Trump, in his childhood, was a very sensitive little boy who was emotionally beaten by his father and emotionally isolated by his mother, who watched his brother get ridiculed. He was a beaten down, bullied boy. I only know that because I was deeply curious about that man. Because my instinct was to not be curious about him. My instinct was to judge him. Do I want to have him over my house? No. I have boundaries about that. But I can have compassion for him only because I could be curious. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious. If you want to know more about me, that my URL is on the bottom of the screen. It's dov@dovbaron.com. You can write to me directly, dov@dovbaron.com. And I want to say this. Listen, Ilan and Tanya and the team put these together for you. I believe they don't cost you anything. And I can tell you that an hour with me is not cheap, let alone an hour and a half. It's not cheap. So they put all this together for you. You get this. I want to make sure that you let them know that you appreciate this. I want you to write to them and tell them what you got out of this, what add value to them. Let them know. And you can write to me, dov@dovbaron.com. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You can find me on all those places, all the social media platforms. You can write to me there too. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you got out of this, what you want to do with it. And if there's something I can help you with, feel free to reach out. I have all kinds of programs, and I've got a YouTube channel with 2,000 videos on it. I've got a podcast with a couple of thousand episodes on it, Dov Baron Show. I write for LinkedIn every Tuesday. I write for my own blog every Thursday. Yeah, full long form articles as well. And I've got, I think, 6 books or something like that. So if I can do anything for you, let me know. Again, thank you, Tanya. Thank you.
No, you're awesome, Dov, and we're very, very grateful. And yeah, and if you do get a lot out of our webinars and everything that we're doing in the world, please support us. Please make a donation this end of financial year, because that's the way we can keep presenting amazing content, giving amazing education, and supporting people in need, especially those patients who are suffering immensely in our community. So thank you all, and blessings to you, Dov, and hope to see you again very soon. Thank you all.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.